They say discipline is a skill, but for Nathan Hale, it was his only weapon. When the world around him was burning in chaos, when people chased comfort, dopamine, and shortcuts, Nathan was chasing something else: control. Not control over people, not over money, but over himself. Every morning at 4:30, when the city was asleep, he would stand before the mirror and whisper only 3 words: "Not today, weakness." No music, no motivation, no caffeine, just silence and purpose. He wasn't born with willpower. In fact, Nathan was the kind of person who once couldn't even commit to a 10-minute workout. He quit everything halfway: diets, dreams, even relationships. But something inside him broke the day he lost his dream job. He was sitting on his apartment floor, surrounded by pizza boxes and rejection emails. He stared at his reflection on the black screen of his laptop and whispered, "I am the reason I fail." That was the night discipline became his religion. For the next 3 years, Nathan disappeared. No parties, no endless scrolling, no chasing validation. He designed his life around one principle: if I can control what I want now, I can create what I want most. He learned that discipline wasn't about being hard, it was about being free. Free from the noise, the impulses, the endless craving for comfort. He started small. He'd wake up at 4:30, meditate for 5 minutes, run 2 kilometers. At first, he hated it. Every cell in his body screamed, "Why are you doing this?" But he kept going, because he knew something was shifting. Discipline, he realized, wasn't built in a day. It was carved, moment by moment, every time he said no to temptation. He deleted social media. He wrote down every goal. And each time he finished a task, he'd whisper, "I keep promises to myself." Those words changed him more than any motivation ever could. Within 6 months, he felt unstoppable. Not because life got easier, it didn't, but because he learned the science of control. He understood that every decision rewired his brain, that every no to laziness was a micro-victory inside his neural pathways. He wasn't fighting motivation anymore. He was rewriting biology. When friends mocked him for being too focused, he smiled because he knew most people are slaves to their feelings. But he was building freedom molecule by molecule. Soon Nathan's mind became sharper. He could focus for hours. His business started to grow, not because of luck, but because he was consistent when others quit. He realized success was never about talent. It was about endurance. And endurance comes from discipline. One night, during a storm, the power went out. Nathan sat in darkness, still working by candlelight. He looked at the flame and whispered, "People wait for motivation, but I create it." That's when he finally understood motivation is a visitor, discipline is a home. He stopped chasing highs. He started chasing silence, because silence made him dangerous. It made him untouchable. Even on days when anxiety crept in, or when he felt like doing nothing, he showed up. Not perfectly, but relentlessly. He studied how the brain rewards progress, how dopamine, that chemical of pleasure, could be trained. He started celebrating small wins. 1 workout, 1 paragraph, 1 hour of focus. Soon, his brain started craving effort instead of escape. He had hacked his own mind. Years later, when people asked how he became so driven, he'd laugh. Driven, he'd say. No, just consistent Nathan had turned self-discipline into art. He didn't rely on emotion anymore. He relied on systems. He knew the human brain is lazy. It seeks the path of least resistance. So he built structure that made the hard things easy. He slept early, kept his phone away, and treated every small action as a vote for the person he wanted to become. Over time, the gap between who he was and who he wanted to be disappeared. He became the kind of man who didn't need to announce his goals. His actions spoke louder than any promise. Every morning, he stood before that same mirror, older now, calmer, and whispered again, "Not today, weakness." And deep down he smiled, because the voice of weakness had grown quiet, so quiet, it almost sounded like peace. He had learned the truth that schools never teach. Discipline is not punishment, it's freedom from chaos. It's what separates dreamers from doers, talkers from builders, followers from leaders. When you master discipline, you stop living reactively and start creating your own weather. Nathan once said, "If you want to change your life, stop trying to feel ready. Start acting ready, because readiness is a myth. But discipline, that's the bridge between dreams and reality." The science is simple. Your brain adapts to repetition. It doesn't care if what you repeat is laziness or effort. It will automate whatever you feed it. So every time Nathan chose to work instead of scroll, to run instead of sleep, to speak truth instead of excuses, his brain evolved. Neural pathways rewired, dopamine redirected, habits hardened into identity. And that's when it happened. He no longer did disciplined things. He had become a disciplined person. That transformation, that's the real science behind unstoppable self-discipline. Years later, Nathan walked onto a stage, not as a guru, not as a coach, but as a man who had fought his own mind and won. He looked at the crowd, thousands of faces looking for the secret, and he said softly, "There is no secret. It's you versus you. And the one who keeps promises to himself always wins." So tonight, when you're scrolling, chasing distractions, and telling yourself, "I'll start tomorrow," remember Nathan's whisper, "Not today, weakness." Because the difference between your dream life and your current life is one decision made over and over again. You don't need motivation, you need repetition, you need self-respect, and you need to act, even when you don't feel like it, because that's how the human brain rewires. That's how greatness begins. And that's how ordinary people become unstoppable. This story isn't about Nathan alone. It's about every single person who's tired of being average. Every person who knows they're capable of more. If only they'd stop negotiating with their excuses. So ask yourself tonight, will you live another year wishing you started? Or will you finally become the person who keeps promises to yourself? If you felt that spark inside you, don't ignore it. That's your mind asking for freedom. Subscribe to Eliza Bethell's Tales, where stories don't just entertain, they awaken. Because somewhere out there, your future self is watching you right now, hoping you finally choose discipline over comfort. This is Eliza Bethell's Tales, and this is your sign to rise.